What's up, everybody? Welcome to BioWare's 3 Raw TV. So, this channel wasn't necessarily for beginners before, and I said that right on the open. We had beginners asking questions and stuff, and I'm like, look, this is not for beginners, right? This is for people that are already established, whether intermediate or advanced or elite. It was for that. It was advanced techniques, advanced diet techniques, etc. It was not the basics in the beginning when I first did this channel, and that's where I wanted it to be, because there was a lot of stuff about, like, teaching people, you know, like, how to weight train, how to calculate macros. Like, there's a lot of that stuff that was for beginners. But I also know now that there are things that were completely left out by many channels and sources that beginners need to know. All right. And one of the things I want to talk about tonight is super imperative. This is one of the most important parts about a diet that you'll ever hear anywhere online, period. Or in person, doesn't matter. I mean, this is probably information that every single person who's a beginner, intermediate should listen to, especially if you've never dieted down to get really lean before. So without further ado, so you make the decision to get lean, right? So most of us, most of the time, have had an off season, or we've been bulking, we've been trying to gain muscle, right? So we put on a little bit of fat, maybe don't look as good as we want to, maybe we decide to do a show, we're going to cut for the summer, whatever the case may be, or you're just tired of not having abs, so you decide this is it, I'm going to start a program, I'm going to do this, right? And for me, I always noticed this in the beginning, and this really held me back a little bit in the beginning. So this may be you. So if this is you, pay attention, okay? I would be 145 pounds, 150 pounds, right? I wasn't a big kid, right? But I wanted to compete, so I wanted to diet down. So I dieted down, and what happens is as soon as you start dieting, like the first day, you're like, okay. You're like, okay, I'm good. You know, you're sticking to it, you're motivated, you're enthusiastic, you're inspired. You get through the first day on the diet. Now, my thing is always, if you can do a diet for one day, then you could do it for 2 days. If you could do it for 2 days, you could do it for 3. So getting past that first day on the diet and not cheating on your diet is important, okay? Because that builds success because you're being consistent. So as you start to diet down, by about Wednesday, Thursday, and this is the first week, you start to get hungry. The hunger signal kicks in, and you start to notice, like, damn, I'm hungry. And sometimes you look on the scale, and the scale starts to drop a lot in the beginning. You're like, oh shit, you know, am I dropping muscle? Am I, like, you're not sure, you're testing your body fat, you're going to get DEXA scans, like, you're freaking the fuck out, but it's actually part of the process. Like, there's a big part of the process that I think many people leave out. They just go, oh, diet and you get lean. Oh, bulk and you get... Here's the deal. As you start to diet down, your body starts to flatten out. Now, as you start to flatten out, meaning your body is starting to, at this point, you're cutting carbohydrates more than likely. You don't have the same fullness you do. The scale is going down, and you're noticing that your shirts, you're kind of like, you're thinning out. Even though you're not really losing a lot of weight, you notice that you don't look the same, right? And then you go in the gym, and the weights may not be able to be sustained. You're getting weaker. And then you'll, of course, read, and people tell you, like, if you're getting weaker, you're losing muscle. And you freak the fuck out, and the first thing you do is go, okay, I'm going to put this whole dieting thing on the side right now. I'm going to just put it on the back burner. I need to gain more muscle, right? So you go jump back into that bulk or lean bulk or muscle gaining phase or mass gain, whatever you call it. And you don't really get lean. Like, you trick yourself into it. Like, your mind starts to play tricks on you, and you go back to not dieting, right? Well, you go back to diet again, and the same type of thing happens. This stops a lot of people from dieting. Like, you feel like you're losing muscle. You feel like you're shrinking. You're getting small. Like, all these things go through your head, and your head's already messed up because you think that you're going to maintain the same size. You're just going to come down in body fat, and it's going to be very equal across the board. Like, your body fat's going to be going down like this. Your muscle's going to be either going up or maintaining, and it's going to be steady all the way through. And that's not how it works. It kind of staggers up and down. So if you weighed yourself throughout the week, which many people do, which is not good for fat loss because it will really mess with your head, you can notice on Monday you weigh a certain amount. On Thursday, it may be up. And you're like, how is it up if I'm doing cardio and I'm dieting? How is that scale going up? People don't understand. The way that your body is reacting, hormonally, your body can retain water as well as the way that you're moving intestinal mass or poop, digested food, like through your intestines and stuff, may change because your body's changing hormonally. It's getting acclimated to something new. So your body doesn't run as efficiently at that point, like that first week in your diet. So you may be retaining water because now you're pushing the cardio, you're dieting, maybe your cortisol levels are rising a little bit, maybe you're drinking more water, which, you know, in the short term, drinking more water can make you retain water a little bit. Maybe you're eating foods that you went from eating, junk foods to more clean, healthy, wholesome foods, which you can eat a lot more of. Therefore, the volume in general makes your stomach stick out a little bit, like you may feel a little bit fuller. You may have switched from regular foods you were using to new different foods for your diet. That can make you retain water. A bunch of things can happen, but the thing is it messes with your head, right? So let's say you get past that first week, you realize what's going on, the scale's going to go up, down, it's going to be all weird and stuff, and you get through that first week, you feel a little flat, whatever, you get through the first week, all right, cool, I'm going to start my second week. Again, it happens again. It happens consistently through the diet where you go up, down, and you look good and bad different days. And a lot of times it's not scheduled per workout, it's not on a specific day. Like you might look great Tuesday this week, next week you feel really thin like you're losing muscle, right? And then the following week, the scale may have dropped, but you look kind of fatter and smaller muscle-wise. Like your skin looks looser, it looks like you're retaining water, but the scale dropped. And you're like, the scale dropped, but I don't necessarily look better. The next week, the scale doesn't drop, and you actually look better. And it's like this complete mind fuck nonstop when you're dieting until, I'd say about 3 to 4 weeks out from a show. This, I don't know, this miracle happens. I don't know how to explain it. And I'm sure there's a scientific explanation for it because it happens every show. It happens with clients. So let's say you have 3 weeks left and that show is coming up, right? For some reason, and it's usually 4 weeks out is when you have a mental breakdown. That's what I call it, the boohoo moments, to where you completely lose your shit and you don't want to do it anymore. You're like, I'm never going to make it. I don't look the way I want to. Like you're in a phase where you just, your body's burning fat efficiently, but you're really pushing the cardio. You're really down on calories, and your body from day to day will change. It's not from even hour to hour. Like you look great at noontime. By 4 o'clock, you look like shit. It's been the weirdest thing. Like at noontime, I'm like full and lean, and by 6 o'clock, even though I'm eating a ton of carbs that day, carbing up on my high carb day, I'm down in weight. I look flatter, even with the carbs. Your body's not digesting them fast enough, filling back up. The next day, you usually look better, right? So there's all these things happening, and if you're going by the mirror in the scale and you don't know what's happening, you think nothing is working right. You're thinking all this random shit is happening. Like I'm doing this stuff. I'm set on doing this. I'm doing it perfectly. I'm consistent, and I'm just pushing it. Why the fuck does my body some days look like absolute shit? Like it does that. We've seen even pros that are loaded on gear and have the best genetics. They start to flatten out during the diet, and you're like, oh, fuck, they're not going to make it, right? 3 weeks out, you're like, oh, they're looking a little better. 2 weeks out, you're like, fuck, now we're looking at something, right? And we get to a week out, and all of a sudden we're like, fuck, he's going to make it. He looks awesome. Like, what happened? Like, what did he change? He didn't change anything necessarily. It was the process. Dieting down is a process, and it's absolutely a mind fuck for most people. So as you're getting to that final week, for somehow, and I believe that it's probably subconsciously because you realize that that show is coming up and you're running out of workouts. You're running out of chances to become better, to be the best that you can be. So now what happens is those workouts, like those maybe last 2 weeks, I'd say, maybe 2 weeks, you're pushing harder in the gym because you're running out of time. It's almost here. You're motivated. It's almost time to get on stage. You're pushing the cardio. Your carbs are low. You're just fucking going all out. Every single day, your body looks better and better and better and better and better and better. You're like, you know, I think it was Brandon Ray that described it as every morning, like the 2 weeks before a show, he gets up, it's like Christmas morning, because it's like unwrapping a package. He doesn't know what he's going to look like in the morning, but he knows he's going to look better today than he did yesterday. That's to the point where your body fat's actually low. So when your body fat's a little bit higher, and you really can't see the muscles the way that they're defined and stuff like that, you'll see the weight go up and down, you'll see your body mass move up and down, but you're not seeing muscularity-wise because the body fat's not coming off at the rate where you can be that lean yet. Once you get to that point 2 weeks out, all of a sudden it's like, you're like, I don't care what I do, I look awesome all the time. Now, there are going to be times where you get depleted, like, you know, I definitely would diet during the summers and stuff because the shows would be during the summers, and I'd go places and stuff, and, you know, the hot weather would actually flatten me out even more. Like, I'd come home really dry and really lean, but I'd be so flat that I looked like 20 pounds less than the morning, right? And then you go to the gym, you get a pump, you look 10 pounds heavier. Like, some of the pros look 20, 30 pounds heavier when they get a pump. Like, it's incredible how fast the body changes. That's why when people say, well, it takes time, like, look, it doesn't take a lot of time. When you're nailing that diet and you're training hard and you have all those things in order, you're consistent, your body's going to start changing within that first week. Matter of fact, many people fail in the first 1 or 2 weeks because they don't know what's really happening to them. They don't know the information I'm giving to you that's normal and it's supposed to happen, and you need to fight through it and write it out. Now, the worst thing to do when you feel like shit and you don't think you look good is to quit. The worst thing to do is reverse and go back to bulking. And I'll tell you why. And this is not true just with dieting. This is true with like everything in life. Most people quit right at the point that they're about to succeed. And I don't know why that is. It's a moment in time where it's make or break. You've put all this work in and you're like, I'm not making it. I'm failing. This is fucking bullshit. I'm just done, right? Literally the next day that call is coming in to give you that contract because you're in shape. That's going to give you $1 million contract to be all over the magazines. Like that's how that works. So if you're dieting and dieting, you give up. You're like, fuck it, I give up. You literally were just about to the point where you were actually going to be happy. which I know sounds insane, but it's a consistent thing that's happened to me, my clients throughout the years, and I'm able to discuss it with them. And this is information I give them because I guarantee within 2 weeks of dieting and training, the question is going to come in, like, I feel like I look worse. Like, what's going on? Like, I look good at night on this day, then I look bad at night on this day, and then halfway through the day at 2 p.m. I look great on this day, and then, you know, 2 hours later I look flat. Like, I don't understand what the fuck is going on. You have to explain that the body goes up and down hormonally throughout the day, and as the hormones change, your body and your physique change. People think, oh, I eat carbohydrates and I fill up. Well, that's technically true because the carbs are filling you up, but the insulin has to move those carbs into the muscle to fill you up. Without that insulin, you don't do shit. So if you are, a perfect example is when people really suck down for a show and they try to carb back up that last 24 hours because they weighed in and made weight. They eat all this food, but they're restricting water. Well, if you're restricting water and sodium, both of those things need to be in place to store the carbohydrates. So now what happens is without water and without sodium, you can't store carbohydrates. Your body doesn't store glycogen. So as you're eating this stuff, their stomachs distend more and more and more. And they may be putting 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds on the scale, but their bodies don't look any fuller. They still look watery, flat with a distended abdomen. Because if there's not enough water in your body to digest those carbohydrates and get them in your system, the insulin doesn't kick up to move them around. So without all the things in place, the hormone can't do its job to make your body do what you're trying to make it do. Like if hormones weren't the most powerful thing, bodybuilders wouldn't take them, right? They take testosterone, they take T3 thyroid, they take insulin, they take IGF, they take growth hormone, they take interleukin-9. I mean, they take so many different things, right? That the hormones are what helps them change. They give the building blocks, which are the macros and the micros, and then the hormones do the changing based on what you do to stimulate those hormones, whether it's training, whatever the case may be. So your hormones are really what's responsible for changing your physique, and those hormones don't necessarily work by what you're putting in. So you could put in 500 grams of carbs. If your body's not digesting them properly, water's there to move them along, sodium's there to move them along, then the insulin is not working properly, guess what? It just sits in your stomach. You don't look any different. So people don't even understand that. Like, it's not just I eat carbohydrates to get fuller. Like, there's a whole process and other things have to be in place. So the only advice that I have at this point to give you guys, and I wish somebody had given me this advice because I didn't know it in the beginning and I failed so many times and I quit so many times. And I put off shows and I put off photo shoots and I put off, you know, I wouldn't say videos because by the time I had started YouTube, I already knew this stuff and I knew what it would take for my body, that I wish I had somebody giving this information because I would have known just to ride it out. You have to ride it out. There's going to come a time in your diet where you feel like you're not making progress. You feel like there's no hope. It's pointless. I'm pissed off. I'm aggravated. I'm upset. I've had enough. All those things are going to go through your mind. I call those boohoo moments, like 4 weeks out is when you start to have those, but you're going to have them throughout the diet itself, not as strong as the boohoo moments. My biggest boohoo moment, I've had 2 big boohoo moments. One of them when I lived in Rhode Island, I was really young, but I was on gear. And I went to a Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru in like the middle of the night. It was open 24 hours, and I bought a dozen sugar donuts and ate them in the car. That was, and then I went home and went, what the fuck did I do? Like, I just lost my shit. I was a teenager at the time. I didn't really understand. That was my boohoo moment that I realized, like, okay, if I do this, then I feel awful about myself for giving up on myself and giving up on the show. So I can't do that anymore, right? So I'm done. I'll never do that again. Now, fast forward to when I was doing a show, probably 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. It was a bodybuilding show, one of my last ones. It was about a month out, and I was really, really pushing it hard. I was 0 carbs. I was like 2 hours of cardio a day. My goal was that was the one I think I got down to 183 pounds for in, I think it was the one in Delaware. It was the Delmarva when I did that show out there, bodybuilding. It was my last actual bodybuilding show that I traveled for. The next one was the Sean Ray a week later, and then I retired from bodybuilding altogether. But as I was getting ready for that show, I definitely specifically remember the point where I didn't know, you know, from day to day I was getting flat, I was getting fuller, all these different things were happening, right? But I was pushing myself trying to get to that point, and it came to the point where I was so depleted, like I had veins going through my fucking, it was really weird how lean I got, and that was a show that I'll be honest with you guys, I used DNP for. So I was really feeling awful, like I was 0 carbs, I was feeling awful, hot, lethargic. I mean, it was very hard just to drive, to talk, whatever. And about 4 weeks out, I just finally said, enough. Like, I can't take this anymore. These drugs are fucking crazy. This diet is fucking crazy. Like, for what? A trophy? Fuck this, right? And I went on one of my rants. I was like, you know what? This is so stupid. Why am I doing this? I'm done. I give up. My girlfriend at the time, who was a competitor, I was actually my girlfriend, Carrie. This was the woman I was dating before, Erin. I said, I'm done. I'm going to Burger King because I like Burger King. And I'm like, I'm going to eat Whoppers. I don't give a fuck. I'm done. And she literally stood in front of me. She said, do you really want to do that? Like, she stopped me. Do you really want to do that? And I said, yes, fucking, I'm done. And she goes, are you sure? Remember, it's the 4-week out mark. This is when everybody freaks out. And you definitely freak out at 4 weeks out. And I said, yes. And I took a step forward and she put her hand on my chest like this. And she said, just think about it. And I was like, ugh. Like her stopping me made me go, okay, I'm going to go eat those cheeseburgers. I'm going to get so pissed about those Whoppers with cheese. I'm going to get so pissed at myself for giving up when I was this close. I'm only like 4 weeks out and I'm leaner than I've ever been and I'm on track to be the best I've ever been. Like mentally, because I'm going up and down and I'm like screwing with my own head about I'm not going to make it, I'm not going to do well, like, you know, I'm not looking the way I want to. All these things running through my head. I had that boohoo moment and I stopped myself and I didn't eat it and I did well. That was probably the best, as far as conditioning wise, the best condition I've ever been in a show in my whole life. And I made that to that show by not losing my shit. I lost it mentally, but I didn't lose it physically to where I acted on it. And that was, you know, again, one of those times where I was like, that's all I had to do was stick it out. Like I was doing all the work. I was pushing myself. I was really, really beating myself up. I just had to ride it out. Had I stopped, I would have never, ever made that show, especially in that condition. Well, I go on to that show. I lose to an individual that is much fatter than me. He's bigger, but he's much fatter. Like I was the only one on stage that actually had glutes and lower back. And I mean, I was lean. I really pushed myself to get that lean. And I got beat by a guy who was about 5 pounds heavier than me that had like his trunks, he had like fat hanging over his trunks. So I really got discouraged. I, you know, asked the judges like, oh, your quad tear is, you know, is very distracting. And I was like, quad tear? I didn't have a quad tear. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I called Kevin Levrone, called Sean Ray, told them what happened. And they were like, it's time to just buck up. You just have to deal with it and buck up. And I just went off and I started eating. And my body did go backwards, right? I obviously gained fat and it was like within a week. I mean, within 3 or 4 days I was getting, I mean, I was so much fuller because I wasn't taking the DNP anymore. I was eating McDonald's every day. I was eating ice cream every day. I was just eating complete garbage every fucking day. And I realized like, had I gone out and started that, oh, I'm going to eat the Burger King now 4 weeks out, I might not have been able to stop myself because it went on for a good 3 or 4 days after I started eating the McDonald's. I was like, I just don't care. So it was like, I haven't had McDonald's in 5 months. I'm going to go eat that. And I was eating like all this crap food and I watched my body and I said, you know what, you would have got on stage and you would have placed dead last if you looked like this. Like it was all about writing it out and not knowing what was going to happen, right? But I knew what would happen. Like I knew if I wrote it out, the worst I would be was how I looked on that day 4 weeks out. But I wanted to be better. And if I couldn't be better, then it was messing with my head. But realistically, I had to just stay the course. Like that's the thing. You have to stay the course, whether it's a diet or it's bulking. You have to stay the course to get through it. And there are going to be all these things that come into your head. They fuck with you. But success is only achieved by staying the course. And as long as you can focus and realize, I may look like shit today, but the goal is 6 weeks from now. I'm going to nail it that day. Today I don't feel good. Let me see how I feel tomorrow when I wake up. 99% of the time, the next day, you actually feel better. When you have your freakout session, the next day, usually things are actually back on track and you feel good about it. But you have to have that freakout section. You have to get the energy out. You have to fucking, it's like a release of negative energy, of anger, of frustration. Like you have to release it all first. And you may yell, you may scream, you may even go get the burger and then throw it in the trash. I mean, there may be so many different things that you do. But the whole gist of it is to stay the course. Nobody ever accomplished their goal by quitting. Okay? Just remember that. And most people, this is going to be a huge statement, most people quit right before they're about to succeed. And I mean like the next day. There are people that have quit stuff. I know somebody had dropped out of a show 2 days earlier. He went to the show, looked at the guys, would have destroyed everybody. He had to hang in 2 more days. He's already gone through 6 months. 2 more days he failed. The next year, when he tried to, because now it's in his head, I could have won that show easily. In his head, he started pushing himself and pulling back a little bit, pushing, pulling back, and then he got his doors blown off the stage the next year. Because in his head, again, he wasn't right head-wise. He wasn't pushing himself as hard, sticking it out. He was half-assing it because he figured I could half-ass it and beat those guys because of the previous year. Like, it literally was that much of a mindfuck for him that he did those 2 shows. Well, he didn't do the first one. He did the next one. Done. Couldn't take it. Could not wrap his head around the fact that that first year, if he had stuck it out for 2 days, he would have been the overall champion of that show his first try. Could not wrap his head around 2 more days after 6 months of dieting. That's how powerful the brain is. It can either shut you down or push you ahead, and it's all your choice. Like, you're in control of it. You have to have control of your mind. It's a mindset. It's mental training. It's building yourself to be so strong mentally that even when your body's saying no, you're like, fine, let's do it 1 more day, right? And then your body's saying no, you're like, let's do it 1 more day. And it's no, it's 1 more day. After 5 days, all of a sudden you look better and you realize you're on track to do better. Now you're back in the swing of things. You're motivated again. Now you're going to have another downswing where that shit comes back and you don't feel like it again. That's the thing. Like, the mind plays tricks on you so much from morning to night. You'll have several times throughout the day where you're excited about dieting, you're not hungry. Other days you want to, other times during that day, 2 hours later, you're so hungry you want to quit. And you're like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. What the fuck? And you get on the scale and you're 4 pounds heavier. You haven't had any food yet today. You're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, there's so much that'll go on during that diet, but that's all normal. It happens to all of us. That's the way it goes down. Knowing that's the way it goes down, and after you see it and experience it a couple times, then you'll be in a position I'm in that when you know what's coming, you know what's going to happen, you know how to make adjustments, you know how to stick it out, you know when to make changes. Like, the whole thing is learning how your body adjusts through that diet, and it is a learning process, but your body's going to tell you everything you ever needed to know about it. You just have to listen. So hopefully this gives you guys a little insight. If you tried dieting out there and you failed because of the things I'm talking about, all you have to do is train hard, make sure your diet's on point, do your cardio, take your drugs, take your supplements, but be consistent. And when you feel like giving up, don't. That's exactly when you're about to succeed. BioStreetTraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. BioStreet.com is the blog. It's the Time to Succeed Bicep, and we are out.